welcome to Digital Calm number something or another.
40,
Yeah,
40.
40.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have been doing this now for well over a year. So we've done 40 episodes of Digital Calm and we did, I think it was 28 of the Wisdom Experience before this. So we have been podcasting for quite some time.
Yeah, we got a lot of episodes under our belt.
A lot of
So it's
content
good. Yeah, so
for
it's all
people
there.
to dive into. Yeah,
You can always go check out the back catalog if you like as well. There's lots of stuff there. Lots of stuff.
absolutely.
But here we are. Here we are for another episode of some conversation and some enlightenment, maybe. Some shifting of perspectives and the like, maybe, and all the rest of it that might go along with chatting and listening to some groovy tunes as well. I got another moon song for you in here as well.
Have you? Do you know, it's
Yeah,
full moon this week, full moon tomorrow.
is it? Yeah.
Yeah, sometime afternoon, I
I'm not
think,
gonna play
in
it straight
London.
away, but there's one in the playlist.
That's
Called it's
exciting.
called Moon Sequence
Mm.
by the
Actually,
Herbalizers.
ooh.
Um, so yeah, so as I'm prone to do, what have you been up to this week? And you
Well,
have
I
written down, so I can't believe you write things down to say,
w-
what am I going to say to him?
don't. That's the
All right,
whole point, right? So I
you didn't
don't
write it,
write them down normally, and then what happens
and you
is you
forget
ask
them.
me, and I kind of forget them, but then I also kind of feel like I rabbit on, and I'm not sure that that's of value to anybody listening. So I thought, right, this week I'm going to write down the most important thing that I want to share that I think will be of value to people. And of course, I've written that down somewhere and I don't know what I've done with it. So instead, I'll tell you what I did this weekend because I had an absolutely jam packed, rocking weekend. And it kind of involved a whole variety of things, all of the, if I say the standard things, some people might call them mundane. It depends on how you feel about your shopping. But food shopping, I should say, not anything more exciting than that. But the other things that I did was I did another of my introduction to practical philosophy courses with the School of Philosophy and Economic Science. And I've got to say, week 3, and it's absolutely banging. It's really, really
What was the
good.
topic this week?
This week, we were talking about levels of awareness. Now, in fact,
Yeah,
you and I have talked about this on a previous episode. Don't ask me which one. I don't know those off the top of my head. But yeah, the difference, essentially states of awareness that you can be in. And that was really good, really good. And what I really love about the school's course is that we have these amazing conversations. We ask questions and I love seeing all the light bulbs go off for everybody individually. And of course, it's the same thing that you and I do generally in our day-to-day work, but it's so nice to actually be part of that kind of as a purely as a learner.
yeah, I think
So
it's
yeah.
good. If anybody's interested in stuff like that too, I think I've mentioned on here several times. There's a Socrates cafes that are run across the world, actually. And it's essentially that there's people gather in cafes or restaurants. I used to go to one in Leamington. Actually, I ran one in Leamington and used to go to one in Rugby. But yeah, you come with a list of topics and everybody grabs a coffee and you have a great conversation talking about and exploring a particular one. So there's those, and then there's the world cafes, which is not necessarily geared so much towards philosophy in quotation marks as it is about just having conversations with different groups of people, but same thing kind of happens. But yeah, Socrates cafes started by a guy named Phil Lapotte or something like that, and he wanted to make philosophy accessible again, and so you learn the Socratic method, which is essentially asking questions to explore your thinking and to get deep into it, to question why you believe what you believe and is it valid or something like that. But yes, using the
Lovely.
Socratic method, which is essentially a handful of questions that you're asking to interrogate your thinking.
So interrogate your thinking, but actually to interrogate your interaction with the world, really, isn't it? To interrogate your experience of daily life.
Yeah, and why you do what you do and why you believe what you believe.
Yeah, nice. And what
Yeah.
about you? What have you been up to this week?
What the heck have I been up to? I've been a scrambling madman of a being. Yeah. Yeah, doing my normal stuff, delivering stuff, making stuff. Lots of conversations. I'm involved in the whole sort of swell thing. I was featured on the voiceover, it was called, and the question was around democracy. Is it democracy or your heart? Uh, are they failing, if at all, or something like that? Basically, it was democracy in your heart. Which one is failing, if at all? That was the question. Um,
Which kind of begs the question that we're assuming that they're separate and different, which they may
we
not be.
They might not be, but that's why you answer the question. So that's the question.
Oh,
That's why it says
interesting.
if at all.
Mm-hmm.
So that was good. That was interesting to be a part of that, and then just other creative endeavors, really making stuff like a madman. Um,
Creating content. That's what we call it in the business, isn't it? We create content.
yeah, maybe or creating art.
Mm.
Well, yeah, I lean towards the art side. Content is very marketing
Well, you taught
speak,
me
isn't it?
that.
I know, but I mean that's what it is. I mean that's what people call it on that side of the world. Um, and then there is that debate around are you creating content or are you creating art? I don't know. So it depends. If you're talking to artists, I say they're making art. You talk to a marketeer, say you're making content. And then some people just going with the lingo of the day, which people call
Mm.
it content. I mean,
And
it
I,
is technically content, but
yeah, exactly. I suppose, I mean, you could say it's artful content, but that's the point, isn't it? An artist, I mean, you do talk about this a lot, both to me personally, but also, when we're talking here and with other people. So we're creating content for people to engage with and interact with. And so we are, but equally, would we do this if nobody's listening? Well, yes. So therefore,
yeah, if you have your marketing hat on you and you're just creating content, that's one thing. If you are creating a body of work, so for me, my approach to social media isn't social media, which is why you don't see me necessarily making broadcast type posts. I think my approach to social media it's an extenuation of my body of work, my writing, my audio story making, my photography is all a part of a body of work. So if you kind of float your way through that, it's a an extended narrative, as it were. Um, so that's how I I approach it for the
nice.
most part. Yeah. Anyway, I don't think that's our topic tonight.
It is not, no. So
Uh,
once again, we've had a very lengthy intro, but we have covered a variety of things there, which hopefully have sparked people's minds. It's almost like a limbo or a limbering up, a warm up.
well,
Like
I,
if you were having an exercise, you've still got to flex those muscles, spark
yeah.
those neurons.
And in the spirit of the business, again, I don't know if you listen to podcasts, but I think part of the I don't know what do you call it, the lexicon, part of the what's the thing if you say a model, part of depending on the types of podcasts you listen to. If you listen to conversational podcasts, it's as much about the relationship of listening to the talkers talk, as if you were sitting next on the table next to them. You wouldn't, you know, yeah, you would be having a conversation. So I think people enjoy, at least feedback that I get and have gotten, is it feels like I'm sitting on the table next to you and listening in on the conversation, basically. Um,
Which, as we know, for anybody who's listening to this regularly, is exactly what we wanted to create this for. I was wanting that dinner party set up. You want to sit around the campfire or go down the pub. I'm happy to join you around the
yeah.
campfire, not so much down the pub
Hence,
these
we can
days.
have an ambling into the conversation that we're going to have.
Exactly. A transition
Because it
from the
is
daily
that
world
kind of a
into here.
podcast. It's a conversational podcast, isn't it? It's not an interview podcast, nor is it a guru podcast.
Definitely not.
Yeah,
Definitely not. We're just two, I'm not sure normal's the right word, but we're just
yeah.
two
Well,
50, we're
I'm not
two
normal.
people in our 50s
I ain't normal.
having a chat. No, you're definitely not normal.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
So anyway, conversation this week. We'll introduce it and then we'll bring in a tune.
okay.
So our question this week is why
Why?
is go ahead.
Why is
Do
the
you know I had
comfort?
to cut that out last time because you did that?
What,
You
I
made
turned
this
away?
big no, you made this big spike
Oh,
and
did
said the
I?
same
Oh, I'm
words that
sorry.
I did. You did because it was really loud. I was like, so I had to edit that out. But you probably didn't notice it, or you probably didn't listen to the episode. But I had to cut that little bit out. But go ahead. What is the question?
I'm sorry. I never
All right.
like to give you extra work.
Yeah.
So, why is the comfort zone so comfortable?
And do we need to leave our comfort zone? Why or why not? That's the
Perfect.
the full up of that sort of conversation. So have a think about that. And then I'm going to play, it's a new tune. And I just came across this week in the sort of new tunes directory or playlist that comes out. It's a new one by Wax Taylor, who's a frequent artist on this show. It was with him and DJ Fly. It's called Fear of a Blind Planet. Oh, what is this? Hold on, hold on. See, all this talking, and I haven't even got it set up to be able to actually play music yet. So, um, yeah. So go ahead, talk now.
Which is hilarious because after you told me that I'd spiked, I felt a bit guilty. So I actually turned my microphone off
What?
ready for the
No.
music. So I wasn't affecting anything.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That was it. You've never done that before. It was just that we said the same thing at the same time, and we both said it really loud.
Mhm.
And so it
Sometimes we
sounded
just get excited, don't
it
we?
sounded kind of weird, which is why I ended up editing it out. But now I need to find. I got so many chords here. I got to find the right chord. Oh, here it is. There's the chord.
Okay. Well, whilst you're doing that, then I'm
Got
going
it
to.
now.
Are you ready? Are you?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought I would just, kind of riff, but
Be
that's
a
fine.
riff, but no riff. And here we go. Fear of the Blind Planet. That's a little Wax Taylor and DJ Fly. I dig that song. That's a new one. It's a brand new tune. So
Oh,
I was jamming it. And we sound good on the radio. I was listening to the radio streamer. So listen, people, I might start doing that if you want to listen to this live on the time that we do it. And you can tweet us if you want to interact. But you can listen on wexradio.com to get the live version of this thing as it's happening in motion. And then the other thing is, I was just talking about Wax Taylor, wasn't I? But might as well throw in a commercial for um I'm hearing voices, so it's throwing me off. I don't know. That's people. Yeah, there's people in the
it's,
house.
as I say, it's at your end because for
Yeah,
once it's silent at my end.
yeah. No, it's my daughter's just come in. Um, So yes, anyway, you can listen to the show on Mixcloud. That's the full fat version of digital comms, the music and the talk. Great platform, Mixcloud. So check it out for the full fat version. Okay, so there we go. There's the question. I've thrown it out there. Why is the comfort zone so comfortable? What's your take on this whole comfort zone thing?
And it's funny because actually that bit of the question is almost the bit I've thought the least about. So, why is the comfort zone most comfortable? I think the comfort zone is comfortable because guess what? We're used to it. We've probably naturally migrated to things perhaps that we're good at, which generally links with things that we enjoy. Or we've been doing things for so long that we're just kind of used to it. And that's when people start to stagnate or get stale or get stuck.
Right.
But I do believe there is value in the comfort zone and knowing what your comfort zone is. But it's finding the balance between that and that which is not.
Great. And do you know when the comfort zone first came into the lexicon of our minds, and who introduced that term to us?
I do not, but
Oh,
this is your skill. So fire away. Come on, the comfort
yeah.
zone. When did
So
it start?
it was brought into space by a lady named Judith Bardick. And she was one of these management consultant things. She was a management thinker, basically, and she wrote a book called Danger in the Comfort Zone. So that's when we started using the phrase of Leah One's comfort zone. And how she defined comfort zone from a psychological point of view is that the comfort zone is a behavioral state within which a person operates in an anxiety neutral condition using a limited set of behaviors to deliver a steady level of performance, usually without a sense of risk. So that's the lady that invented the term in quotation marks of comfort zone from a management point of view, and it's about performance and your levels of performance um, and the like.
And when was
Yeah,
that roughly?
that was 1990s. It
Oh, okay.
was.
So
Yeah.
actually, quite late. I was expecting it to be before then.
No, but
Um,
there was some cats in 1907, Robert Yerkes and John Dodson. Um, but they didn't call it the comfort zone. They were just doing experiments between the link between anxiety and performance. So she's just given it a name. They were doing that. So she's given a name for anxiety and performance and the limit on one or the hindrance of one to the other. They were doing experiments on it in relationship to how anxiety affects a person's performance,
and
both
that's
from a. Yep, go ahead.
I would say, well, that's quite interesting because actually, if you think of anxiety on a continuum, as it were, um, actually when sort of anxiety starts almost you're anxious to perform well. Now these days we talk much more about anxiety as a particular state of being, but of course actually before you get to that state of what we might term, maybe classify medical anxiety, there's that anxiety or that anxiousness to perform to the best that you can, or there's that anxiousness about something that's going to happen, but that's not the state of anxiety that prevents you from doing anything. So,
Well, I think just saying here depends. So, I mean, we'll talk later, but we won't talk now. I mean, there is again, both scientists and from that point of view, but there is a point where anxiety becomes inhibiting.
which is
Um,
now what we would term medical anxiety, as it
yeah,
were.
yeah. Well,
That's
these guys were, I guess, they were psychologists, but you mean like medical, as in as in the hospital,
clinical, that's the word I'm
clinical.
looking
That's
for,
what you're looking
sorry,
for.
but
Yeah, clinical.
exactly. And these days, if you think about it, we talk a lot about clinical anxiety, and people
So
diagnose
those might
it
be
anxiety and depression.
extreme versions of anxiety, because because I think what they're talking about here is that on its extreme end of anxiety, you become paralyzed. Basically, you freeze.
Mm,
You don't.
absolutely.
You can't do your thing.
No, no,
Um,
absolutely. Which is why it was interesting to hear you say, so behavioral state within which someone operates within a set of behaviors, usually without risk. But actually, if you take anxiety to its eventual conclusion, if you carry on down that road, then in fact there is a risk because you will stop performing. So that's kind of interesting. Yeah, I like that. Well, I don't like it, but I find it interesting.
yeah, and so the reason we stay in our comfort zone is to be anxiety neutral. Is this is what Judith was at. So I don't want to take risk, so I stay in the comfort zone because there's it's anxiety neutral.
But
Because
eventually that itself could cause anxiety because staying in
it,
the comfort
yeah, I
zone.
guess if you have FOMO, fear of missing out, and you think, oh, I'm being left behind or I'm missing out, it can cause that kind of anxiety. But in and of itself, you stay in it because it doesn't cause any anxiety, unless you start looking at it and saying, I'm not getting this, I'm not getting that. So if we go to some of our other conversations, if you start looking out at other people and saying, how come my life isn't like their life? How come I don't have these things? And you start lacking things, and that might cause you some more um, mental anguish if you're in that space. But I've known people who love their comfort zone. They don't come out of their comfort zone, don't see any reason to come out of their comfort zone, not interested in uh, other people's measurements of performance. And I used to call that the Homer Simpson principle. You know, I'll come home, drink my Duff beer, go to work, do the same job. I might complain about it, but ain't interested in changing it. And you know, as long as I can come home and drink my Duff beer
Hmm.
and sit on the couch and watch TV, I'm good. And in fact, you're kind of a fool if you're trying to do something other than that. So yeah, there's some people whom the comfort zone is a natural state of being, and they're quite happy with it. Um, which is, yeah, I guess sometimes to each his own, as it were. But as um, Judith, can I call her Judith? I don't know. She's not my friend. I'll call her Judith anyway. But as because the comfort zone, or the idea of the comfort zone, was aimed at this idea of, it was management speak basically, and so it
Mm.
was about performance. And so the whole idea here was is a zone. So you go from comfort zone, fear zone, learning zone to growth zone. So from her model, you stay in a comfort zone to feel safe and in control. But the moment you step out of the comfort zone is when you start to be affected by other people's opinions. You start to feel this fear. You have lack of confidence. You find excuses not to do the new thing in the fear zone. And then at some point, you move into the learning zone, hopefully, and then you start to deal with the challenge or the problem. You start to acquire new skills. And so now you've extended your comfort zone to a new place, this learning zone. And then the final zone is the growth zone, where you then find purpose, live your dreams, set new goals, that sort of thing. And then a new comfort zone is established once you stay in the growth zone for too long. And I think you just keep this pattern going. So um, yeah, that's how the model that she put forth in terms of leaving the comfort zone, and the reasons why to do it, and it's linked to performance and the like.
So it's in my, I mean, it's something that I actually quite often describe when I'm talking about well-being, but it's personal growth, personal development, and it's like a helter-skelter. So it's circular, but it's not the same. You're not going back into the same comfort zone
You have a new one.
unless, yeah, exactly, you're into a new one. But it's kind of that constant upwards motion. And in fact, actually, when we talk about well-being, which we're going to talk about next week, we quite often talk about looking at kind of your own personal growth and development as like peeling the layers off an onion, and that's kind of peeling it off and kind of going into your center, into your core. What I'm hearing is this is more like a helter skelter, but a kind of a reverse helter skelter.
And when you say
um,
helter skelter, what do you? Yeah, because only helter skelter I know is the one that killed lots of people in California.
okay, I don't know, might have done. But yeah, so helter skelter. So it's really funny because I think of it actually from the Beatles and from a song and a piano book that I had, which I'm sure had a helter skelter on the front. So helter skelter, it is a like a playground or a fairground ride. So it's like a curly whirly slide, but you obviously start at the top and you'd go down. Reverse
Okay.
helter skelter is kind of going up, and I do that because I think of personal development and self growth
So helter
as
skelter says
upward,
involve in disorderly haste or confusion.
because you're going down at speed. You're going
Uh,
round and down at speed. So you are disorientated because you're like, whoa, your body is, and your body is
uh,
going in one direction. You can't stop it. Once you start, you're off.
so I guess I wouldn't see this thing as a helter skelter then.
No, I'm saying it's a
Yeah,
reverse helter skelter.
reverse one. Got you.
So it's not a circle. It's like and people who kind of cut out spirals or circles when they were doing crafts when they were probably younger, and then you pull it out. And I can see this so clearly in my mind's eye, and I don't
Yeah.
think I'm necessarily
Yeah,
explaining
probably
that
not.
very
But her
well.
model is circle. So her models are not concentric circles, but there's a circle, the smaller one, which is the comfort zone. But they do touch. They have one tangent point in conjunction. So if I was drawing this out, I would draw a smaller circle, comfort zone, then a larger one that encompasses the comfort zone, which is the fear zone, then another one, but starting from the same point, the circle, and just draw out. So she has four circles basically, a, a giant one, and then these other ones inside of it. But they all
Okay.
touch at a tangent point called the comfort zone, and then you've
So
got
that
yeah,
sounds interesting. That sounds interesting. Yes, I shall look that up after we
yeah,
finished recording. I was thinking about drawing it on my whiteboard, but I've been writing so many notes on my whiteboard
heavy,
there isn't space.
nice one.
All right.
Yeah, let's go for a song. 07 again, another favorite of the podcast, but this is them teamed up with Moses, and this one is called "This Is This World," and we're back into the room. So a point that you made somewhere ago in there is that everyone's comfort zones are different. So these circles we've drawn, your circles, everyone's circle is going to vary in size, and in order to move through the comfort zone, through the growth zone, you have to have some level of self awareness. So you need to understand and appreciate what your outer limits of your comfort zone is, and when does it move into the panic zone, and knowing where that line is. And then there's something about, again, remembering that you can acquire skills so that you mitigate the panic, and then you start to learn some skills, and then the thing that was causing you this discomfort, this panic, um, you get to a mastery, and it becomes another comfort zone after you master because you got to keep going. Maybe,
Mm,
but anyway, I
well,
think the point was that it varies for everyone,
mm.
in terms of the size of your comfort zone, what they might be.
Yeah, and it's not just that it varies for everybody, but it's also that it can vary for you at different times in your life. Now, actually, this links with what we've talked about last week about being and becoming. I actually think it probably goes back to a few episodes before that as well, when we were talking about identity and behavior. But it also very much links with what we're going to talk about next week as well, and well-being. So
It all
yeah,
links.
different. It does, of course, because this is all about self-development, and
It's
self-development
all
in
about
our world is
humans.
perpetual, yeah, and lifelong.
It's all about being human.
It is all about being human, and different circumstances at different times. There's lots of things when we talk about, well, actually, the most stressful things that people can do are things like moving house, buying a house, getting married, having a baby, all of that kind of stuff. And it's interesting how so many of those happen all at once or in the same couple of years for so many people when they're in their 20s and 30s. And you can cope with it, or you think you can cope with it better, whereas actually once you get into your 50s, if you suddenly had to do all of that in a 6 or 12-month period, yeah, it's going to be quite challenging.
It may be. I think that comes back to philosophy of life again. It depends on how you view life, I think, in all of those things that you're describing.
Yeah, and I can see that definitely that has validity, but actually I would also say that for
When
many
have you ever known
people,
me to be stressed?
well, yes, however, you are unusual. You said it before, you're not normal.
Yeah, but
um
there's more people like me, I'm sure.
I don't think there's that many people like you, to be
Yeah,
honest.
there's more of us
um
out there.
but I think there's a lot of people who are going through things, and actually it takes it out of you. And we can talk about that from a physiological point of view, from a mental point of view, but it's hard to cope with all of those things, and it's hard to let go maybe of things, because you'd got into patterns with them the older you get, and you need to let go of those patterns to embrace something new, but actually it's so ingrained, that's quite a challenge.
Well, I don't know. I was just thinking of Carolyn Dwecker's stuff. Is it Dwecker? When she
Dweck,
talks about growth
mindset.
mindset versus fixed mindset. I think people who have a natural growth mindset probably cope with those types of things a little bit easier than others. And then I think if you have, I mean, like you just take, I don't know, some of your sort of your sort of Muslim and Arabic kind of cultures where everything is the will of God, for instance, then again, you have a different outlet that doesn't make those things. You're able to say, hey, you know, it is what it is, or, in Allah or whatever, but it doesn't build up because you don't turn it inwards and hang on to it and make it hard. You just
No,
accept that it is what it is and you kind of carry on. But yes,
you've
I mean,
surrendered it to a higher power, or to
yeah,
something
I think
outside of
that's what I
yourself.
mean. I
Yeah,
guess what
yeah,
I'm trying to
that's a
say is
good point.
depends on people's mindsets and their approach to it. Because I know people, well, my daughter's the other way, and she takes everything to heart and she gets really stressed and she's like crazy, uh, and then her brother's the complete opposite. Nothing seems to phase him because his approach or his thinking is, well, it is what it is, and let's just carry on and do the next thing. But they have totally opposite approaches to things from that point of view. So I think that wholly depends on your outlook. However, you derive that outlook, I think it depends on that.
Hmm. So I think it depends partly on your outlook,
Yeah.
but and I mean, I obviously you just mentioned Devon, your son. He takes after his dad. As you say, you don't get frazzled, you don't get burned out. Your daughter sounds much more like me. So I've always had a growth mindset. I've always had an optimistic outlook, but actually, I've had so many years of firefighting and dealing with things that were external that eventually it wore me down.
But I think
Um,
everybody does. I mean, I can't say that I haven't had any external stuff. I don't internalize the external stuff,
no,
is what is I guess probably me and my son's approach is like, okay, well shit's going to hell in the handbasket. Okay, well it's going to hell in the handbasket. And what am I gonna do about it, kinda? Or I'll just, I had a saying for the longest time that I use, it'll all come out in the wash. So,
mm.
yep, life sucks and I'm at my bottom lowest point and it doesn't look like things can get any worse. But you know what? It all works out in the wash.
And I
Is
think
yeah,
that's something that you come to. I mean, you've obviously had it for the longest time, as you said, but I also think for many people, that's something that they start to be aware of with age.
yeah,
Uh,
mine
you know,
was when I was just out of in my 20s.
just out of diapers.
Yeah. No, I had a point, and I said, as I said, I remember distinctly when I had that little epiphany, and I remember exactly where I was, and from that point on, it just, I don't know what was the realization. Whatever it was just like a, and then just suddenly my whole, they say that change can happen in an instant. That
Mm-hmm.
happened in an instant, and from that point on, I was never as stressy. Like I used to get all like you would probably be hard pressed to think that I was a really quiet, shy kind of person. Only spoke when spoken to. Got nervous speaking in front of groups. Would be sweating. And yeah, that used to be my world. But then something snapped, and I was like, no more. And then I haven't been there ever since then. And
And
it was a very
sorry.
distinct thing.
So, what happened and how, because this is something that I'm sure many people would want to listen to and go, okay, I want to do that. And in NLP, you're saying part of the coaching conversation is say, right, tell me how you do this. And somebody talks you through the process of what they do. And normally they're telling you something negative that they do so that you can then change it into something positive. But here you've got the positive, right? Tell us, because we all want to know, how can we have that instant change? How can we reconnect what's
Well,
going on
that
in our
instant
brains?
change, I don't know how that happened. That was years ago. As I said, that's why I've been this way for, well, for 30 some odd years. So, and I didn't have there was no coaches back then. I had just got to a really stressed point, and then I just stopped in the middle of walking somewhere, and it's like, and that was the voice. It was like, no, no more, and then that was it, and I was done with that way of being, that mindset, that being completely crazily, stupidly stressed about things. So I don't know what that was. I can tell you when I come across things that are stressful now, what I do is just remember that it doesn't, it's all going to come out in the wash. And it is what it is. And, so I can, and I guess the other phraseology is, I could spend time worrying about this, but that's a waste of time because it doesn't change anything. Or I can look for an avenue through this, around this, above it, under it, or what have you. Um, Almost like Captain Kirk, there's always a way. And so I don't, where some people spend a lot of time on the emotions like being angry or being worried or being stressed, I tend not to spend time in those places. So the conversation in my head is that is that I could do that, but it's not helpful. It's a waste of my time, and the sooner I'm through this and done with this, the better. And that it is, yeah, it is what it is. So just carry on, make coffee. Don't you got tea mugs like that? Carry on, make coffee. But that, I mean, that is the thought process that goes into my head. So even, I think I mentioned to you last week, even in the army when we're doing really stressful things, and some of my commanders and stuff would get, they were visibly upset with me for not being stressed.
Mm.
It was like, but, I'm getting the thing. It's not like I wasn't doing the job and doing the job very well. It's that I wasn't looking like I was stressed or running around and acting stressed or doing what other people was doing. So they had a hard time fathoming, as you're looking at me now, how can this be? How can you be in this situation with this kind of stuff going on, and not be in this state? And I don't know how to explain it to them, just like I don't know how to explain it to you, except that they hated it. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. So,
But I think even just hearing you share that is interesting. And I think there are some actually really key points in there, which is, actually you consciously interrupted your thoughts, you consciously interrupted where your mind was going, and you probably sort of practiced that enough. So that became your kind of habitual go to pattern interrupt, I would guess, just from what you shared. So, yeah, interesting. Good.
yeah, it's a fascinating thing. So, comfort zones, how big are they? This idea about knowing where your limit is, where's your panic zone kind of space is. And I think there's an important point that Judith makes here, which was about this idea that it's a process of moving, that the process of moving from comfort zone to growth zone isn't always linear, that there can be peaks, troughs, and plateaus that complicate that journey from comfort zone to growth zone. And as you said, sometimes we do need to retreat to the comfort zone periodically to muster up the strength to leave again. Um, and I guess being able to tolerate uncertainty, because that's a lot of what stepping out of the comfort zone is there's that uncertainty, there's that unknown, that you're stepping out into, and that's what causes the discomfort, because I don't know what's there or what's going to happen or what's going to be the result. um, and if I think of this from a spiritual point of view, I don't know if you've done any of the Carlos Castaneda's work, and the Nagul, the unknown, and part of the man of knowledge's job, I guess if we call it a job, is to constantly push the boundaries of the between the known and the unknown, and to go, and that's where you go to find your to go find more personal power, is by extending that the line between the known and the unknown, to keep pushing the comfort zone to and coming out of it and going into the unknown, even if it means going into free fall. And but remembering, just as you just kind of say, yeah, NLP and do these, so remember your tools when you go out into this hinterland and go into free fall, that you have the necessary things to do to right yourself up if you're discombobulated and you're upside down, but you know how to right yourself. But sometimes you don't make it back. I think they make that point in that whole sort of um, warrior shaman doctor thingy, that
Mm.
sometimes you don't come back, because especially if you go in without the necessary tools that you need to help you survive, when you
Yes.
go into that space.
And I mean, I would say that I've been there. I'm sure I've been there where I haven't remembered my necessary tools, and I have gone into free fall, and it is a very uh, dark, lonely, and certainly for me a very depressing place to be. Um, Now, whether that I would translate into being frightened, I'm not sure, but I'm sure for some people it's frightening. For me, it's like the pit of despair. And I hope to never be there again. Um,
The pit of despair. That's a
Pit
nice
of despair.
existential term.
Do you know what?
Yeah.
It says so much. It really does.
Yeah,
The
but
the
that's the one
pit
thing
of
that you
despair.
do, isn't it? You go to the pit of despair, and that's where you have your enlightenment from, in the pit of despair.
Exactly. So, and now that's really interesting. And you have to get all the way down into the pit of despair sometimes. And I noticed this.
Without
Oh,
falling over the edge and drowning in
oh,
the pit.
well, yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
you couldn't just kind of hover and work it back from there. I had to go all the way down into the pit of despair. I couldn't just kind of pull myself back up. And this would happen time and time again. And eventually I looked back and realized, and it was like, my gosh, I always have to go all the way down before I then come all the way back up, at which point, and it's like bouncing, kind of up and down and up and down. And
Mm.
it's exhausting, absolutely exhausting, which is why one of my life's, you'll give me the word in a minute, but, is to find balance. But balance has to be, I mean, I talk about it when I talk about stress management. We'll touch on this in the wellbeing episode next week. It's undulating, kind of like the blood sugar should be undulating, not these massive spikes. And yeah, that's where people get worn out, is when they're constantly going from one extreme to another. So
Yeah, but I
yes.
like those extremes, don't you? I mean, you don't. I
No,
mean, I do.
they
Yeah.
exhaust me. They absolutely
It's
exhaust
like
me.
that middle. I mean, I know you go to sort of the middle ground, but it's yeah, it's a Billy Joel song, and he says in that song, I don't know why I always go to the extremes, but you go into the bottom and you go to the top. But it was that manic depressive, isn't it? So I'm really high, I'm really low.
uh,
There's no in between.
Bipolar.
Um,
Maybe I'm bipolar.
Maybe I
And
don't
that's
know.
not to make light of it. I have
No,
wondered
no,
that over
get
the
you.
years. But Billy Joel song,
Hmm.
I'm trying to, which one you have to sing so that I can work it out.
I'll find it when we go to
Do,
this
do,
next.
do. I love Billy Joel. I
Yeah,
saw him in concert once. Oh my gosh, that was amazing.
yeah. Here we
That
go.
must have
This
been
is your
about 25
song.
years ago.
Moon Sequences, or
Mm-mm.
Moon Sequence, the Herbalizers.
I love that. And it's
Yeah.
so not the kind of thing that I would normally listen to. So I don't know if it's because you say this is your kind of thing because it's moon like, but I just yeah, there's such good kind of beat to it, and it almost sounds like the the beating of the heart, or the I don't know. I just kind of imagine that there is this, yeah, it's almost like an ethereal but very grounded connection.
And here's your other one, your Billy Joel one. I Go to Extremes, it's called.
Of course. I
It was easy to remember.
exactly. It does what it says on the tin.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah,
I love
that's
Billy
one.
Joel. I just absolutely love Billy Joel. I
Yeah, I was
just think,
a big
yeah.
fan of him too, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. I've got quite a number of his albums, and then one of his ones that has the most special impact or emotional impact to my life is when my parents split and we drove. My mom just, she needed to escape from New Jersey, so she just packed us all up in the car, me, brothers, sisters, all the dogs, and we drove from New Jersey to Georgia. And I had this tape just playing almost on repeat, Glass Houses, and I listened to that almost all the way down to Georgia a lot.
Mm.
And so, yeah,
The
that one's,
power of music.
yeah. But yeah, then I got loads of this of Billy Joel. I was a big fan.
Mm.
Billy
Me
boy.
too. And now I'm just thinking,
And
and
he's
I
been down to the bottom, hasn't he? He's been in insane asylums and
absolutely,
all kinds of stuff. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So what was the other thing I wanted to say about this comfort zone business? So there's this benefits. That's it. Benefits of leaving uh, the comfort zone. Oh, before I get into that, that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to do my commercial bit, which is, well, I want to shout out to Dave Anderson. If you listened this far, I know he listened to last week's, had some comments on the in the group on last week's episode. But shout out to him for that, and then for everyone else in terms of my commercial plug here. So we've got the Digital Calm on Mixcloud, so mixcloud.com at Digital Calm, so you can find us there. You got all the episodes of Digital Calm are there, so you can re-listen to the episodes or you listen to the music. You can find me on Spotify if you like, because you can then find all the Digital Calm playlists are public, so you're welcome to do a search for Clay Low in that spot, and or just search Digital Calm and whichever number, and it should come up. And of course, we're on Twitter at Digital Calm. We got the Tumblr at tumblr.digitalcomblog. What else do we got? We don't have a. We got a Facebook page, but we don't use it. And we've kind of put a lot of stuff in the Wisdom Cafe, although it's not Digital Calm. But I don't know. I actually don't know why we put it all in there, but we put it all in the cafe, so you can go there. Um, and did I miss out at a place? There's a YouTube channel if you're
Yeah,
into
there's a YouTube
YouTube.
channel. I don't
Digital
think you
Calm.
did. I don't think you did. Basically, people can find us kind of on most of the main social media
Oh
sites,
yeah,
one way or
Instagram. You
another.
can find us on Instagram as
Mm,
well. Digital
that's your
Calm.
baby.
It's our baby, but
Well,
yeah,
it is our baby, but and now
it's
actually,
our baby.
but it's a
That is his
great
mom.
example.
This neglects her, but that's okay. But it is our baby.
It's yes, okay.
Yeah.
So
But
I was going to say
neglected
we
by
could
his
take
mom.
this neglected by because it was actually too much for me because I couldn't get my head around how am I going to keep up with Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. I kind of dabble in, but it was kind of a Instagram. I just and because of course it's I'm all about talk. I'm not so much about the visual. I was like, you know what, something's got to give, and so yeah, I let
And
you
you do
play
what
with
all
Instagram.
boomers do, even though you're not a boomer. You opt for Facebook, even though the growth space is Instagram. But
Do you know?
that's
Yeah.
classic. So that's classic sort of boomer-ish kind of thing, is just stick with Facebook because it's the easiest, but ignoring where the attention is. And it's the attention economy that we're after. So you go where the attention is. And but that's a whole other story. So
But is
don't
that
go there.
me staying in my comfort zone?
Yeah,
I'm
well,
sure it is. I mean, I know it is.
yeah,
But the thing is, you don't quite feel like it's your comfort zone because there's always new things coming on. So I think I did a
yeah,
live last week, and okay, I've done a handful of lives over the last couple of years, but suddenly now we can do lives and everybody can do lives more easily, and then they'll introduce something else and they'll introduce something else. And I'm connected to whatever it is, nearly 1,000 people on Facebook, so you kind of go, oh, but and you never know who's really watching, and da 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 da. But I
yeah,
think that is a classic example of the comfort zone. um
yeah. No,
and
I would say that would
so
be a classic,
mm,
yeah, classic example of the comfort zone. In terms of, but yeah, absolutely, and yeah, the disconnect between what you're trying to achieve and what you want to achieve, but staying in the comfort zone because it's comfortable, even though it might not necessarily get you to where you wanting to go. This is hence why making that journey from. But then, if you use the steps, comfort zone, fear zone, but then you go into the learning zone, and then once you get into the learning zone, you acquire the skills that you need to do, and then you are able to move into the growth zone and live your
which
dreams, set new goals, realize your aspirations, and find purpose, which is in
have you just
the
read
growth
that
zone.
off a web
That's on her.
page?
That's on Judith's diagram of the comfort zone.
And so when we have the next break, would you
Yeah,
post me the link to that? Because I think I need to pop that in the show notes because I didn't find that in my little search earlier.
yeah,
But it's interesting. And I think, what you're saying about the comfort zone, and you're absolutely right, the learning zone, the growth zone. I was thinking about this quite a lot. And in the last kind of 12 to 18 months, I've actually been doing a lot of intense learning in a lot of areas. And that has almost confused me because I've been learning about podcasting, and I've been learning about different elements of social media, and trying things out. As we know, I'm doing some consultancy work. So I've been doing a lot of learning and growth within that, getting to know new and different kinds of not delivery, because it kind of melds with what I've done before, but bringing my consultancy and training knowledge up to speed. And there's just been so many things. And also, actually, learning how to be a parent as my teens have evolved into very much they need something different from me than they did, certainly even a year ago, actually, and even 6 months ago. There's been some huge changes. And so all of this learning all at once is kind of quite challenging.
yeah. And I don't know that she meant it as in learning, as in as you just applied it, that you're learning lots of different things. I think this is, you know, take one of those things, for instance, social media. You had a comfort zone about that. Learn some skills to overcome that bit. Because she does make a point to say that, you can't change. You got lots of comfort zones and growth
Mm.
zones going at any one time. So when you're acquiring one set of skills, it might be time to put another, leave something else in the comfort zone while you're working on a thing. So, and because you have these multiple zones going on at any one time, again, you have to, and this is where she makes the point of self awareness. You need to have the self awareness to know, one, where you are, where you're myriad of zones and comfort zones, which ones to shift and when to shift them, and being able to not cross the line into panic,
Mm.
and knowing where that line is so that you don't go into panic, which then goes into extreme anxiety, which then leads to shutdown, and on it goes. So it's a very complex, moving kind of thing that's going on. But then humans can be very moving and complex, in terms of, how we go about doing what it is that we do.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, there's benefits of comfort zone. Um,
There's definitely benefits of comfort zone. Yes, absolutely. But
yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's
What do you
again,
have?
it's
And
that
then I'll give you
self
these ones. Yeah.
Okay, well, so I was going to say but again, it's very much, you're right. It's that self-awareness. Where am I at? And actually right now, what do I need? What can I experiment with, um, in essentially a way that takes me out of my comfort zone enough so that I'm growing and developing, but not so much that I fall off the cliff. I keep saying fall off the cliff. This series is quite interesting. But yeah, so it's finding that. So yeah, so what have you got?
Well, there's a few things. I'm sure there's many more things, but one of the four that they point out here is self-actualization is one benefit of uh, leaving the comfort zone because you can step into the space of your self-actualizing. So as Mr. or Maslow says, what a person can be, they must be. And so, in that journey towards self actualization, stepping out of the comfort zone aids towards that. We talked about and hit on growth mindset is another benefit for leaving. And then this was an interesting one, this resilience, but not so much resilience for me, but the anti fragility, which I'd never actually come across that term. But it's a term from Nassim Taleb that he calls it you thrive and grow when you're exposed to volatility, randomness, disorder, and stressors. And he called this anti-fragile. And I think what I liked about that term is that resilience has a connotation that you take a hit, but you bounce back to the same level after the shock. Which, as the excuse me here, whereas the anti fragility is that you reach new heights. You push past where the low where you were, bounce, hit the low, and you bounce back further than where you were. So you don't bounce back into place, but you grow, basically, reach new heights, which I thought that was interesting that you. And Conan the Barbarian says, "That which does not kill me only makes me stronger." Yeah. So that's what that reminded me of. And the last thing, which is one that I'm a great believer in as well, is this whole self efficacy. Is that it? How you say it? Uh,
Efficacy.
yeah, efficacy. And that's wholeheartedly into that. Um, yeah,
Tell us a
yeah.
bit more about that, because
Well,
that
it's this belief that you are able to execute any actions in service of a goal that you're attending. So you believe that you can do what it is that you want to do, that you have you know, the necessary belief to do that. Which for me, that the belief in it is everything for me. So I might not know how to do something, but I believe that I can learn it, and therefore, it's I can conquer it, if that's the right phrase. But I, I, I come from a belief that I can learn anything I want to learn. Um, it might take me a longer time to learn some things versus other things, but I hold the belief that within my own power and grasp, which is probably why I don't do many courses and things like that, because I just go learn it myself as opposed to have a teacher or the like. Yeah, that's why I don't really go on courses, and I always find myself bored when I go on courses.
but I
Yeah.
mean, I think that is, or some of that at least, is down to the fact that you have done so much learning, you have done so much reading, you have done so much experimentation and experiential learning, that actually you are, you might not be at the bleeding edge, but you're certainly towards the leading edge, if you like, of the self-development curve.
Well, it's all stems from just the love of knowledge. But the whole independent, I've got a bunch of books behind me at the top shelf there about independent scholars. And yeah, that whole movement of,
Yeah.
don't waste time and stuff on courses and universities and things like that,
But
you
you see, this comes back
make
down to
your own thing.
different people need different things.
Yeah, no, okay, that's what I'm saying. So
So,
for me, because I hold this belief in the self-efficacy,
mhm.
that is a core driver for me that says I don't need any other person, body, thingy for it. if I want it, I just go do it,
Mm,
and learn how to do it. But that's just how I'm wired and driven, to do. But other people are driven and made up in different ways. So yeah, so I think that comes back to the self awareness piece, as in you have to have the self awareness to know how you're wired, and then go from there.
I agree. I absolutely
Yeah,
agree. Have we got another tune?
yeah, why not? Simplicity, Soma Sonic. Oh, good stuff. And that Soma reminded me of A Brave New World. I don't know if you read that book.
Aldous Huxley. No,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
haven't. I do
that's
you
a
know
good,
I know
good book.
so many titles of books or things, and I've never read them. Never gone it. And I think we talked about this last week. I think as well. It's really interesting. But
Yeah, that
yeah.
was a good book, that one. But they have that Soma as one of the things that keep everybody in this utopia feel. It's a drug, basically.
Mm,
But that was an interesting premise of that book. I don't know if we're going to do a show ever on utopias, but essentially, when they set up this utopian society, it was they looked at all the things that caused us stress and anxiety and messed us up basically psychologically, and they just took all those things away. So you get taken away from your parents at an early age. You can have sex with whoever you want to, so no one's allowed to say no. You just can go around doing what you're doing. You don't pick your jobs; you just get assigned. Different classification of your job, and then you've got your soma, of course, and so everyone's in this complete harmony thing. Um, but then there are people like me. I'm like the main character.
disruptors.
Yeah, they ask too many questions. So this guy
Mhm.
just couldn't accept that life could be like this. And I don't want to give any spoilers, but it was cool. They have a special place for people like me.
Ah,
Uh,
it's really interesting. I was never drawn to it, and I think I can probably guess why. But the way you've just described it, I'm like, oh, that sounds a really interesting book now. But at the
hmm,
time, I think that was probably so far outside of my comfort zone, and I tend to pick things up very easily. So actually, where you have got this resilience, actually, I would say, I tend to take things on and internalize them. And there is a part of me that kind of believes that everything is somehow related to me. So I can read a book and I have to be very careful what I read before I go to sleep at night, which can be a lot of fun. I've done a lot of self development that way, kind of consciously into my subconscious through the night as I sleep. But also sometimes I've been, I've really disrupted myself and my mental health by reading things or watching things or listening to things that actually have been very disruptive.
hmm, very good. um,
Okay. So what were you looking at that point whilst I was explaining that?
I was looking at Yerkes's and Dodson's law of the comfort zone, because where Judith draws circles, they just have the regular, um, the normalized graph thing. The what do you call that curve? What's that curve called?
I don't know because I've not got it. So let me
Well,
do a
this
little
is the standard one. It's the bell curve.
bell
That's it,
curve.
bell curve. Yeah. So they've drawn it out as a bell curve, which essentially you've got performance on the vertical axis, anxiety on the horizontal axis, low and high. So where you've got low performance is you're in the boredom zone.
Mm-hmm.
And then optimally, believe it or not, you've got middling anxiety. So you're your optimum level where you're at the midpoint of the anxiety scale, and at the midpoint of the top of the bell curve is your optimal space. Then as you go to the right of that and start moving into high anxiety and low performance, then you've got your panic zone, and performance decreases when you get into that zone. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so they have it's called Yerkes and Dodson's Law.
So I've got that on Wikipedia, but it doesn't have, although it has the grass, it doesn't have it like that. But I have just found healthline.com.
Yeah.
Is that what you're looking at?
Nah, come on. I'll send
Okay.
you the link
Would
in
you
the.
send me the link then, please? And can you also send me the link on Judith
No, they're
Bartlett's
all the
stuff?
same link. It's all one big
Right. Well,
giant
please, will
article.
you put that in the chat?
Yeah.
Because I was trying to ask you to do that before. But please, would you send that to me? Because I can't find it on my Googling
Yeah. And
whilst
you're
we're chatting. On
Googling
my
bit.
Googling, my Googling.
All right, so let's get ready to wrap this gig up then.
Okay, well, there's kind of some things that I always wanted to. I
Go
always
for it.
wanted to. That was sorry. That was a slight slip. Always wanted to. So I was thinking about this, and last week we talked about being versus becoming, and actually, it made me think that this is so linked with that because you need to be connected and comfortable with your being, with your thoughts, with your beliefs, with your behavior to enjoy the ride of becoming. So, and then I kind of thought, okay, what do I mean by this? And it was like, well, being is a bit like an anchor. It doesn't weigh you down, or it's not about weighing you down, but it's about giving you a strength, a center, and a focus. And then the more connected you are to your being, the further you can go, the further you can stretch or flex. And I started to think that's actually that was where I'd got to in kind of my bigger picture, I suppose, when I was thinking about the comfort zone. And actually it is for me, it is right, where am I, what am I being, and where is my becoming? And I can only become consciously when I feel connected or anchored, in this case, to my being.
Sweet. Where's this dead
Thanks.
air coming from? What?
Well, I'm laughing because I'm not sure that you're actually listening to me, or maybe I've
No,
just
I am
presented it in
listening.
such a way that there's nothing to come
No,
back with.
I thought you was just making a statement about some realization that you've come to. It sounded
Which I
like to me.
was, which I indeed I was,
There you
indeed I
go.
was.
So it was out there. There it is, and that
Yeah,
was good.
cool.
Yeah.
All right. So, do we think that's
How do you leave the comfort zone? We've got to give people that. I think.
how do you leave the comfort
How do you
zone?
get out of the comfort zone? How do
Well,
you get out of the comfort zone?
okay. So generally I will start to become aware that I'm actually uncomfortable in the comfort zone. So, kind of, it normally is when I become aware that I feel a bit bored, or I'm stagnating, or I don't really want to do what I've got to do, even though I have to do it every day, or on a regular basis. And so then it depends really on where I'm at generally. Sometimes I kind of cast about a bit, just kind of keeping my eyes open or my ears open or my senses open to see kind of what swings by. And sometimes it's a more conscious sort of going out and about. So, for example, philosophy, which we've talked about a lot on this program, I I've wanted to study philosophy for a very long time. We've had countless conversations about it. And I've
You've been
tried to
studying it
read.
for 40 episodes now.
Well, exactly. But it was, I might reach out and try and read something. You talk to me about Socrates or Plato. I pick up on Maimonides, but I still don't believe, or I didn't believe, as it were, that I was a philosopher. As we know, well, not as we know, but anybody who listened to the Wisdom Experience last year, I think I signed up to do an A level in philosophy, and it wasn't that I was going to take the exams. It was just I wanted the experience of doing the reading and the learning and the writing the essays, which would also hopefully give me critical thinking and critical analysis skills, which was something I also wanted to sharpen up. And I didn't prioritize it, but I tried it and it didn't happen, and all of these kind of things. And then out of the blue, good old Facebook, funnily enough, popped up with an ad for the School of Philosophy and Economic Science. And it was literally, I didn't even think about it other than, is this available at a time that I can join in? And they did a Saturday morning class, and I'd signed up within 10 minutes. And that's really my process. I get uncomfortable in my comfort. I start to feel that I'm stagnant or I'm going backwards or I'm bored. And then I start to look around for what's next. And sometimes it's a very conscious decision. More often than not, it's kind of it's almost an unconscious awareness of, well, what's next, what's coming. And then I kind of just think about, okay, will this do it? Will that do it? Da 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 da. And then I eventually overnight go poof, and I'll pick on something, and then that's it. I'm off. There's no stopping me.
Well, that's cool because, well, there's a number of processes that you've just outlined, and one of them, and this is one I think I said earlier, that change can happen in an instant. And I know we had a conversation a couple episodes ago, or the other one, when we were talking about coaching, and why I believe it's, there's a fast approach and there's a long approach, because you've demonstrated to me the fast approach is once you've decided something, you don't need to talk to anybody. You don't have to think about it. Just do it. And so it's, and that just happens in an instant. You didn't need anything else. You just, once you've got yourself to that mindset, then you go. And so when I talk about the fast way, it's getting to that point where I actually don't need anything because, your brain has came to the point that says, yes, I'm doing this. And there's no decisions to be made, really. It's just do. So there was that aspect. And then, again, as you say, you feel that uncomfortableness, things feel stagnant, and then, you kind of look around and then you find some stuff, but then you find a thing and you kind of go and you just know. You don't have to, think or research or take time out or any of that, which is cool. I think, and I was thinking about this. And I don't know if if comfort zone and routine are the same thing. Because I know there's some things I just leave in the routine space, so I don't have to give any energy to it. And I don't care that they don't change because I don't want them to occupy any space in my brain because I
Mm-hmm.
need it to read my books and things. So anything that I can just put in there, um, yeah, yeah, I just leave it in there because I don't care about that anyway. Because if it's going to take me away from my books and things, and I don't want to be bothered. uh,
Absolutely. And that's a bit like, isn't it? Like people like Steve Jobs or Simon Cowell, they wear the same thing day after day after day.
yeah, don't
They
can't be
have the
bothered. Yeah,
black tops and black trousers because then there's no thought process going into that. They can just
exactly.
grab it. They feel, I say they feel good. I don't know if they feel good. They just don't have to think about it. And you're absolutely right. That then, is a whole ton of brain energy that can go where you direct it consciously.
You don't have to get it tied up in these power sinks, as they're called. But then, yeah, for me to get out of it, I'm one of these just leap and then see what happens after you take that big uh, leap. So I don't really deliberate or think too much about it. Just take the leap and then see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm probably impulsive in that way. I don't really, yeah, I'm probably borderline on a very impulsive in that kind of sense because it's like I will just go and think of and deal with the consequences later, if whatever consequences that might come out of it. Um, and I do like, this. There's something about doing things slightly different, seeing things in a kind of a different way as well. For me, I like getting lots of different perspectives on things and
I do.
don't generally hold a fixed view. So I'm quite fluid uh, in my beliefs of things, I guess. It's not very solid. I like I go and hang out on one side and hang on the, and I could argue the same. I could argue both sides of anything. I could, be on one side or be on the other side because I just find that the act of of the arguing is fun. And I don't actually really care about the thing. Like the stuff I say here, it's there, but I'm not wedded to it. Um, yeah. So I think those are probably my biggest things. Is yeah, one, I'm just constantly looking for some something new and shiny, which could
Mm-hmm.
have its downsides as well, because I am not a completer finisher. Um, it's just like my thing is this: once I figure out how to do something, and I'm bored, I'm already done with it. It's like, yeah, okay, I know how to do
Absolutely.
that now. Now, what's the next thing for me to learn how to do? As I look around my workshop of things that I had learned to master. I'm like, oh, yeah, all right, done that. I proved I can do it. All right, next, what's next? Um,
Now, you see, that's really interesting because, first of all, obviously, I'm pretty aware of that. But actually, I kind of used to be more like that, more of that kind of impulsivity. And as you said, like, I'd go something and I'd learn it and I'd do it. And then I'd be looking for the next thing. Used to be like that before kids. Um, I would say, and you've seen this in me, I now have a bit of almost a fight going on sometimes because I'm like,
and is that just a female perspective, do you think?
well,
Because
I don't know.
I never let my they changed to be fit me. I didn't change to fit them.
Yeah, and do you know what? I always thought that my kids would do the same, but I think because of the way in which I truly entered parenthood, I think that has
Yeah, but do you don't think
changed.
that's a? I'm just wondering if I'm just asking, is it a gender
And I,
thing? Do
yeah,
you feel that you have to accommodate and
yeah,
be?
I've had to be a different person than I would like to be sometimes for the kind of, I believe, for the greater good of my children, both individually and together.
Because I find
Um,
that kind of common with lots of women. I think they seem to, whether it's because men force them in that space, because somebody's gotta be the adult, or if it's just a natural. I mean, I can't. I'm not. That's why I'm asking you because you're
mhm.
a
Well,
female,
I
but
think you and I approach parenting very differently, and maybe that's a
yeah, but
whole
from a
conversation for another
philosophical
thing.
point of view or from a male female point of view
From
or
a
both.
probably both. But I mean, this would be kind of interesting to maybe. Yeah, I don't suppose we could ever get Ruth and Nick to join us, but I think I mean, for people who've listened to us for a while know that when I had my first child, I was only 25 weeks pregnant and he wasn't expected to survive, but he has, and he did, and he's a fabulous young man. But it absolutely changed the way Nick and I approach parenting because originally, absolutely, the baby was going to fit into our lives. I was going back to work 6 months later. That wasn't going to happen. 6 months later, he was only just coming out of hospital. So actually we had to adjust because otherwise it was going to severely affect his being, never mind his development.
And I guess so. And adjust is a huge kind of word there, which is a lot packed into it. I mean,
Mm,
and maybe it's a different conversation or for another time. But I'm just
I
thinking,
think
did
so.
you have to adjust your mind, or did you have to become a different person, or did
Both.
you mean you had to adjust your habit, which is different. As in, so, did you change your personality? Did I go from being an extrovert to an introvert because I had to because of my kid type thing, is what I mean by personality? Or are you still Naomi? Or are you some other person? Um, and is your kid made you another person? Or you're the
So
same
he
person,
hasn't,
but you've
but
changed your habits. Not that you changed the person that you are, you just change your habits. That's what when you say
yeah,
yeah,
no.
I
So
changed the
so no,
habits, not the
no,
person.
that I no, the person changed. So I think, a very different one, a very different person, and I've had to find my way back. And that's why when we talk about identity and we talk about our behaviors, that's why sometimes, over the years, I've been so adrift because I didn't know who I was anymore. Because to be the parent that I believed he and my other son needed me to be, I had to put, I had to prioritize them. And I think that's been a constant duality and a fight. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I mean, I know my circumstances were quite unusual and quite extreme, but actually,
But that's
I think
interesting
that's
because
quite usual.
and I because remember I told you I shared that story on here before about my, my little epiphany that I had on when I was doing the Camino and that sort of pilgrimage, um, where there was tension in the battle between being this and being that, but then when when I let go of the external stuff, internal, then I didn't need the external stuff. I guess because I had placed my identity outside of myself, caused the tension when my identity was inside, and that I could just be sat at this computer board and be happy, just sitting in the room doing nothing. Um, that just changed everything because I didn't need external things to symbolize anything else for me. I could literally just sit in the room and everything would be cool. I don't know.
So
Anyway, that's
I
another
think it's another
topic
episode,
for
although it
something
does
else. But
link. So I'm going to
yeah,
bring it back round because it does link, because you're right. You'd place your identity when we place our identity outside ourselves, be it as a parent or for any other reason, actually, we are going outside of our comfort zone, and it can enhance some people or
I don't know
it
if it's
can
gone
set
out of
you
your.
adrift.
I don't think. I
Well,
don't
no,
think
I
those
think it
two.
is.
I
I
don't
think it
think they
is.
equate to each other at all. Identity and comfort zones. But as I say, I think that's probably a different discussion altogether.
Absolutely. I
But
think that
yeah,
could be quite fun. But
yeah.
maybe we'll save it for a few months
Yeah. Okay.
to
So,
get there.
sort of wrap up then on the.
Hmm.
Do you want another song and then come back
Yes, let's do that. What have you
and
got?
then we'll do our sort of conclusions and then go. This is called Raid the Radio.
I love that. I
Yeah,
absolutely love that. That is a super song.
that was a cool tune. All right. So give us the skinny wrap down. What did you take away from comfort zone, new insights, new shift in perceptions from our
Uh,
conversation?
Well, I've just taken away loads and loads and loads of things, which is of no help to anybody. So I'd never come across Judith Bartlett before. I think that's really interesting. But I have to say, well, kind of not just what I'm taking away, but what I'm going to look into more is actually the anti-fragility by oh, sorry, brain's just gone blank. By Nassim
Yeah,
Nicholas,
Talib.
and just superb. And when I actually looked at that on Amazon, it's tough times don't last, but tough people do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that is a really, yeah, that was really nice to see in black and white, and actually has done a bit of a click in my brain. So thanks for sharing that.
Why not? Absolutely. So no, cool. No, that's good stuff. For me, I think I guess the big thing is always about well, one thing that I learned, for instance, the Judith thing is a new thing for me that I brought to here, and where
Ah,
that got well, because you just a lot of phrases you have, isn't it? Comfort zone. We just say it, but
exactly.
where
I
it
didn't
actually
realize
sort of
that it
came
stemmed
from.
from. Yeah.
Yeah, same. So that was interesting. And anti fragility is a concept that I'd not come across, which I think is pretty cool thing to think about. That you're kind of bouncing through to newer heights. Really,
Mm.
all the things that I think that I practice, but now having a phrase or a term for it, I think is very uh, interesting in there. And I guess, yeah, comfort zones. And it's, I was, because I whole like that whole sort of Castaneda stuff too, and the Nagul and,
Forgotten we'd
the,
even mentioned Carlos Castaneda.
yeah, and, pushing the known between the boundaries of the known and the unknown. And in fact, that's rumored to be where the Doors got their name from, what's his name?
Oh,
The poet Blake.
William
And
Blake.
he's got a poem about, it's like there's doors of perceptions, and in between the doors of perceptions, there was that thing. What was it? How does it go? It goes something like there's a known and the unknown, and in between are the doors of perception. Hence the doors. Um, but
I never knew
yes,
that. I love the
having
doors.
that, always trying to push that boundary between the known and the unknown. I think is
Mm.
pretty cool. But likewise, it's quite easy to get into routines. It's quite
Mm-hmm.
easy to get stuck. Um, I had a question, and I don't know. I mean, we're kind of going on a bit, but now I'm trying to remember. I said, is it because what's a if you're in a rut, is that deeper than being in the comfort zone? A rut, as in I guess you can't get
Yeah.
out of the rut.
So a
Uh,
comfort zone could be, and thinking back to what you were saying, there's no anxiety technically in the comfort zone, but stuck in a rut. When you say that, it's you're stuck in a rut. So that to me is, whilst it may not be anxiety, but it's deeper than a comfort zone. That's probably where I personally would be starting to get uncomfortable,
Yeah, I
before
guess that's
falling
what,
into
but
the
that's
pit
where
of
the boredom
despair.
comes in, isn't it? And I
Yeah,
mean, I guess how you
absolutely.
say the boredom, so you kind of in the rut and kind of want to move out. And last thing I'll say, and this is, and we talked about this maybe in the wisdom experience. You know, one of the challenges or problems or reoccurring conversations that I have is that what do you do when you've done loads? I could go climb another mountain, but it's still another mountain, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Jumped out of airplanes, I've done this, I've done that, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, what do you do when you've done so much
So
stuff?
I think that's another episode in itself as well.
Well,
I
we did
don't,
talk
I,
about it in the wisdom experience, but we can
we
revisit
did,
it.
but I think so. Bearing in mind, we've done so many kind of things in between, but
Yeah,
yeah, no, I think that's, and I don't think that's comfort zone. Well, it is comfort zone. Naturally, it's moving up to self actualization, um, but it's quite. I would say it's quite a specific part of development.
yeah, but does it make you go to do extreme stuff? As
It
in, I've
depends.
done all the things, and now I'm just bored with the. Like
It
like I
depends.
said, you
Let's
could climb,
explore
yeah,
that.
you could climb a mountain, but it's still climbing a mountain. I need to go into space next, I guess, or something like that.
Mm,
I
yeah.
don't know. Anyway, but
Let's
that
do that another time.
that was a thought. Um,
It's a good thought.
okay, so I think that'll be it. So, folks, again, thanks for listening. If you made it this far, be sure to like and share the work out. Be sure to comment. Be sure to sign up to the newsletter as well. You can also forward the newsletter to people if you are already signed up, so you can forward it on to folks as well. Likewise, you can chat to us in the Facebook group, Wisdom Cafe thing, or you can chat to us on Twitter if you've got things that you want to discuss or talk about or hear us talk about or what have you.
Mm.
Just drop us a note. And on that note, it's time to eat an orange and watch you.
That
Is
sounds wrong.
what?
I've got to ask, what's you? Because now people are going to think that you're going to sit and eat an orange and watch me. And you're definitely not going to be doing that. So
Uh,
what's you? Because that's a
it's
new one.
it's what season 3 is out now of you, which is about some. He's a pretty much um psycho
Oh, great. Okay.
killer type.
I've just remembered what it was I was going to share at the beginning as to what I've done this week.
Watched
Oh,
Lucifer.
no, no. I actually played on the Nintendo Switch and I played Mario Olympics or
Nice
something
one.
like that. And I thought, I must tell you, it is the first time I have gamed in I don't know how long,
Yeah,
whatever. And I came last every time. And but you've got to me. You've obviously got to me because I
nice.
came off it and I thought, you know what? If I did this for 10 minutes a night, every night for a week, I'd improve. And then I started to
Uh,
chuckle to myself because that's how much you've got to me.
there we
So
go.
I had to share that
Nice
with you.
one.
I'm sorry that I'd forgotten it because it was so, so key
Yeah,
to
nice
many
one.
things that we've talked about, at least personally, if not on air. So,
All right.
so on that note, we'll see you all next week.
Indeed.